Welcome in, everybody. This is Major Push Wrestling, episode 3. I am joined by the returning Thomas, and we are joined by the newest member of the Major Push Wrestling community, C-Rod. So, Tom, how are you doing today?
Excellent, brother. How you doing?
Doing well, thank you. Happy to have you back. C-Rod, how are you feeling today?
I am amped up, happy to be here. Appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. Welcome aboard. We look forward to many more, as they say. So, guys, this is the opportunity for all of us to share our thoughts on the happenings in wrestling. Some of the things that have been going on maybe weren't the most newsworthy. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to give our thoughts on our personal WWE Men's Mount Rushmore. That's 4 individuals, the best superstars, however we want to do it. We're going to explain how we came to this decision. And I'm looking forward to letting know to hearing what you guys think. Make comments in the comments below, and I will respond to every single one that I see, and we will share those thoughts with the world. So I'm going to throw it over to the returning Tomas. Tomas, what are your 4 men's WWE Mount Rushmore superstars? Take it away.
All right. So, in no particular order, I've got to say Cena, The Undertaker, Triple H. Spot 4 was the most difficult for me. I really hate this question, but probably Triple H. Probably Triple H.
Okay, so you have Cena, Taker, Triple H, and who else?
Cena, Taker, Triple H, Stone Cold.
And Stone Cold Steve Austin. Okay, wonderful. Would you like to elaborate on how you came to that conclusion, sir?
Yep. All right. So, Cena, for the better part of his entire career, has done everything in his power to kind of keep things afloat. There have been a lot of points in WWE's history when Cena was top dog, where things were a bit lackluster. And I think that shows a lot to his work ethic and his character on being able to make something out of nothing in many moments. Um, you could go around the world even today and you can say the name John Cena. Chances are people are going to know who that is, or they're going to at least know what the you can't see me thing is at the very minimum, even if someone has never seen wrestling. Because I think back to, let's say, '05, '06. I'm in school, I'm walking around, and all these kids are just going, "You can't see me, you can't see me." I didn't know who Cena was until all these kids started doing that. And then I started watching the guy, and I'm like, oh my God, he's so charismatic. He's so athletic. Is he the best wrestler in the ring? No, but he makes up for it in his appearance, the merchandise, the fact that he's been the face of the company for 2 decades. Um, I could go on and on and on about this guy, but I have him firmly. I have him as my GOAT. I think he's the greatest of all time, strictly for what he's done for the industry and the precedent that he set for everyone to come after him. Those are big shoes to fill, and I'm really happy to see so many wrestlers look up to him and try to match that level of commitment and energy to the company and to the craft overall. I mean, it's an art at the end of the day. Uh, Undertaker, for a totally different reason. So he is, in my opinion, the trailblazer of the gothic horror scary guy. Um, when we think about the Undertaker, lights go off. He comes in, pops in out of nowhere at times. Anytime you even mention his name in the ring, wrestlers would look up in fear just to go up against this man. And Taker would normally give you a line or two. He wouldn't talk much unless it was the American Badass Undertaker. That was a totally different time. But he rocked that too. He was incredible at that role. I feel like anything he touched, he did so good at, and he was so calculated in every little thing that he did. He made sure that his moves mattered, like the tombstone, for example. You kick out of that thing, you're gonna be either looking at the end of Taker's career or you're just that good, which most people were not. You are not beating the Undertaker that way. Uh, he had the streak going on for so long. He had the greatest storyline, in my opinion, of all time, where he's in the Hell in the Cell with Shawn Michaels, and my favorite wrestler ever, Kane, made his debut, and then he had that feud with him. He just had such a lasting impact. Again, you could go around and people know about the Undertaker. And something about him is that that's actually very difficult to replicate. There's a lot of wrestlers, especially in the indie scene, that are trying to come up, that are trying to go for the whole gothic, big man, scary guy look, and it doesn't hit the same way, because if someone tries to do that, it's like, oh, well, you're trying to be the Undertaker. What he did was so original, so pure, and it stuck. It worked. People loved it, and he was supposed to be a heel, and people just absorbed him. They're like, bring out the dead man. We love the dead man. We have an internet meme because of him. Teddy Long telling people, your punishment, you're going up against the Undertaker. Honestly, enough said. The guy didn't even need to have championships. He's on the Mount Rushmore. He will forever be there for me. We'll go with Stone Cold. So Stone Cold was, I think, a pioneer of the Attitude Era in general. And a lot of people have so much nostalgia for that time period, because that was when wrestling, at least in my opinion, really, really, really took off. That's when it really started the wheel going. You think back to like WrestleMania 13, him against Bret Hart, another great, not in my Mount Rushmore, but arguably the greatest in the company at that time, being put in the sharpshooter, and all you see on TV is this close up of Stone Cold just gushing blood, screaming, not tapping out. And he set the tone for the Attitude Era. He is the poster boy of the Attitude Era, the same way that John Cena was the poster boy for the Ruthless Aggression Era. I guess we should call it that. Leading into the PG era, which was a downturn, made that happen. And Stone Cold, when we're talking about him in the ring, again, not the greatest wrestler in terms of ring talent and all that, but his character more than made up for all of that. You saw him walking down that ramp, you hear that glass shattering, the place erupts every single time. He gets a massive pop because people love that big belly Southern Texan man who drinks beer, and he has no other mission than to just beat the crap out of whoever comes in his way. He never showed fear. I love the guy. Definitely earned his spot. And then number 4. So I hate the number 4 spot, because this is the one where I try so hard to really justify exactly why I put someone in number 4. I think Triple H deserves it, but there's so many other names that I could bring up. I hope you guys bring up some of them. I really do. But for Triple H, he is, in my opinion, one of the greatest heels the company has ever produced, and one of the greatest baby faces the company has ever produced. He's done fantastic in factions, first generation DX, second generation DX. He's gone on to do his single runs. At one point, he was bragging about being the 10-time world champion, which was a big deal back then. I know nowadays the number is a bit higher for a lot of guys, but man, Triple H coming out and creating magic in the ring and just electrifying the arena. He was big. He was a bruiser. The pedigree was an incredible finisher. He had the look, the American, biker guy with the long hair, big muscles, chugging the water, spitting the crowd, and people love it. And he knew how to work the crowd. He knew how to make people hate him, but he really knew how to make people love him too. And then as time went on, even if Triple H attempted to be a heel, you still wanted to cheer for him. At the point when he was beefing with Cena at WrestleMania, I did not want Cena to win that. I wanted Triple H to beat the crud out of him. I wanted to see him get his 11th title. I wanted to see the guy, really prove that like he was it. And he's more than proved that to me. He's done so much for the business at large too, aside from just wrestling. I mean, you could talk about the faction of Evolution. This guy brought up Batista, Randy Orton. He helped put these guys into the main event scene. That's such a huge thing. We're talking about 2 major heavyweight champions. Randy to this day is still with the company, and he's on fire. He's on absolute fire. And Batista was the prime guy for SmackDown for so long, and that I think a lot of that is a credit to Triple H being humble and putting these guys over and really making a great, I guess, precedent for how to properly put other wrestlers over. I love Triple H. Very tough number 4, but I do believe he deserves the spot.
Very well done, Tomas. And we appreciate your list. I have no doubt in my mind that there is going to be some crossover with at least a few of those names. Well done. Great explanations. Love to hear it. Now we're going to throw it over to our newest member of our community, C-Rod. Take it away.
Yes, I appreciate it, Gino. And I'm kind of here to throw a wrench in things because while I do agree that there is, a Mount Rushmore of wrestling, of WWE, of WWF, whatever you want to call it. I mean, we're talking about almost 100 years here, and so many wrestlers. Like to say that there's four wrestlers that top everybody else is impossible, right? And everybody's Mount Rushmore comes down to opinion. How old were you during these eras? Who did you grow up watching? Does it tie into family? Does it tie into nostalgia? For me, I watched wrestling heavily as a kid until I got into high school, and I actually stopped watching wrestling for almost 15, 20 years to actually get drawn back in the last 5 years, which is crazy. And, maybe that's a story for another time.
Mm-hmm.
So the peak for me, and I'll present this a little bit different than Tom did. I'm not going to tell you all four at once, but I'll kind of paint a picture, right? So for me, 1995 to 2003 was peak wrestling for me. I was 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, getting into all of that. So I actually grew up with WCW. WCW was the first wrestling that I watched. I didn't, from what I remember, I didn't like the gimmicky stuff that WWF was into at the time, WWE, and I was a WCW guy with Hogan and Flair and Macho Man and just all of that kind of drew me to it. So my first Mount Rushmore is actually Sting.
Like it.
Not
Okay.
not not a name that pops up often. You know, for me, Sting, he was not just a character. I remember Surfer Sting, right? The kind of comical guy, but he was still a worker. He still put on great matches, and then to sit there and watch Crow Sting come out from the rafters and be watching this ominous guy sitting in the rafters, white face paint with a bat, just tension week after week, especially when that NWO angle happened. It was much bigger than anything that WWF was doing at the time. And I wanted to watch every single week. Who was Sting going to attack next? Who was Sting going to beat up next? How could he take down the immortal Hulk Hogan and get that championship belt? It was just chaos every week. And when I think back to my hiatus and what I see now on TV, I'm just like, man, I get chills. I do the rock thing right here. I get chills just kind of thinking about Sting coming down, swooping, picking people up, and you're like, wow, where did they go? What's he doing? And that's just nostalgia of being a kid, right? Like I said, that 10-year-old, 8-year-old kid, just ominous. And so we kind of keep it into the transition of WCW, the NWO angle, and then I finally became a WWF fanatic in 1997, 1998, when DX is coming in. Stone Cold's making his rise, and obviously the WWF Divas were there. So number two for me is a similar name. It's going to be Stone Cold Steve Austin. I don't think there is a Mount Rushmore out there that leaves Austin off of the list. I mean, he's just essential. And Tom, I actually disagree. When you say that Stone Cold wasn't a good worker in the ring, I think pre-neck injury Stone Cold, you talk about that match with Bret Hart, Stone Cold, he did start as a technical wrestler. A lot of his matches, if you look at Stunning Steve Austin, he was a technical wrestler. He wasn't just a brawler, bruiser. That was kind of his transition, post neck injury. And early on, even in 1997, 1998, he was all over the place. I mean, he was a great in-ring wrestler. He tried to grapple, but because of injury, he just got a little stiffer, and he had to become that brawler. A short run. I mean, Stone Cold didn't need 20, 25 years to do his thing. You look at his body of work, you could put it into 4 years, right? His main prime run, and he flipped the industry faster than we've ever seen, even to this day. And again, the middle finger, the ode to authority. Again, me being my preteens, there's just nothing like Stone Cold Steve Austin brawling in a supermarket, hitting people with a beer truck, blowing cars up. You name it. It was a different time, a different place in wrestling, but I think there's always that number one spot for Austin. So then we talk about Austin retiring, right? And that was when I think about Austin, when I think about The Rock, I love The Rock, and I'll spoil this now, but The Rock is not on my list. And when The Rock went to Hollywood, I was okay with it. I was still into wrestling, but when Stone Cold retired, it like took a piece of me from wrestling. Then, I was going into high school. There was the switch to WWE, and John Cena came in. I did not love Cena when he first debuted, and I just kind of took a step back. Fast forward 20 years, wrestling's in Tampa. WrestleMania's in Tampa. I'm like, okay, I'll watch it. Nothing really caught my eye. I was like, hey, I'll just start watching WrestleManias. Austin came back in, I think, WrestleMania 38. I started watching monthly PLEs again. And the person that stuck out to me the most was this eccentric, this captivating, this agile Seth freaking Rollins. And, he still has a career. He's not done. I'm sure people are going to look back on it, and maybe one day they will put Seth Rollins in some sort of Mount Rushmore, especially for the work that he did in the 2010s to kind of carry that over. But Seth Rollins is what brought me back to wrestling. Just watching him, his flamboyant style. Sometimes it's a little over the edge when he looks like an oven mitt, but when he dials into that Joker character, that Joker persona, is what resonated me with being a Batman fan. And pre-back injury, pre-knee injury, I mean, the man had all the moves. He was a high flyer. You mentioned the pedigree being a great finisher. Of course, Seth has the pedigree. He could do all the stomps in the world. And I went to WrestleMania in Vegas, like, to see Seth Rollins, and I went to Royal Rumble in Tampa to see Seth Rollins, and it's just no childhood memories, no forced like loyalty. It was his pure charisma that kind of drew me back in. The matches that he had with Cody Rhodes, the matches that he had with Randy Orton, with Brock Lesnar. I mean, the man just puts on 5-star matches. I don't care what Dave Meltzer says. But that's what he does. I mean, being at 41 and watching that triple threat, it's still, I've rewatched it since. It's one of the best matches that I've seen from a storytelling perspective, from an execution perspective. When you talk about triple threat matches, usually it's one guy out of the ring while the other two focus. But Punk, Reigns, and Rollins made that triple threat work all together. So my number 3 on my Mount Rushmore is going to be Seth Rollins for sure. Then to kind of pull back the curtain a little bit and hide this, I said The Rock was not on it. And in place of The Rock, because this was a very hard pick, my number 4 is actually the bad guy, Scott Hall. Scott Hall, again, I had no idea who Razor Ramon was. I didn't watch WWF at that time. And when he came to the NWO as an outsider to WCW, I was in immediately. When I saw him come over, with the toothpicks and the hey-yo and the surveys, he was just, a gateway for me of like, man, this guy's cool. This guy's bad. Kind of like pre-American Badass Undertaker before that even happened. He was kind of the original guy, just laying down the law for me. So I think with no Scott Hall, is there an NWO? If there's no NWO, is there a WCW Boom? If there's no Boom, or is there Monday Night Wars? We don't know, right? he makes the cut for me over The Rock just because of everything that he did in the ring, but also he was so influential. If you listen to other wrestlers talk about him, he was so well respected, and he brought the best out in not only wrestlers but who they were, persona in ring, and just from all the documentaries and respect that he gets. He was a contributor to wrestling as a whole, and there will always be love for the bad guy. So my top four is Sting, Scott Hall, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and Seth Rollins, the Visionary.
Well done. You definitely threw, I wouldn't say a wrench, but you definitely took that and ran with it. And that's the benefit of us providing our own personal opinion on a Mount Rushmore. I know that, Tomas, you had said that Taker's going to always be there forever for you. And that's what Mount Rushmores usually are. They're very static. They're very rigid. You can't take a name down and stuff. But with sports, we have to be able to be a little bit fluid with that. So I respect and appreciated, you guys' ability to add in, you got a Seth Rollins and you got, Cena's been there for 20 years. So obviously, I'm not going to bury the lead with my top four here. I'm going to do it in a similar way that C-Rod did it. Everybody who's watched me for any amount of time knows that I am a John Cena guy. He was my camp counselor when I was a kid. I'm from West Newbury, Massachusetts. He's from West Newbury, Massachusetts. Cena could do and can do no wrong in my eyes. And there's going to be a theme to my list. My list is going to have essentially the saviors of pro wrestling, is kind of how I'm looking at it. Cena, wrestling wouldn't be around today if it wasn't for John Cena carrying the company, selling the merch, pushing through all of us kids that grew up out of the Attitude Era, through the ruthless aggression era, through the kayfabe era where we're like, oh, it's fake. I fell off and stopped watching too for many years and missed some of the best matches of all time. We're talking about our Undertaker streak matches. We're talking about the Cena matches. We're talking about all these guys, the Triple H's, everything like that. Cena, 17-time champion. I mean, we could sit here and talk all day about Cena's accomplishments, what he's doing inside the ring, but also outside the ring. Make-A-Wish, the leader in Make-A-Wishes. He's doing the Hollywood stuff, but he's always, even more than The Rock, has felt like WWE was always his home, and he never lost respect for the company, and he never ostracized himself from it. Even with his current work now, I mean, like, he can tell me that me rooting for him is a problem, and I'm just going to root for him even harder because I love it. And like, is it a little too late with this heel turn? Should it have happened in the past? Probably, but we'll see where this ride takes us for sure. So Cena, I would reserve him for number 4, but there would be no suspense with that one. So Cena, the GOAT, he's number 1 on Mount Rushmore, and no matter what happens throughout the rest of history, he will always be on there. Now, this one, together, again, no spoiler here, nothing else to say, but you guys have said it perfectly. Stone Cold Steve Austin. He didn't necessarily save pro wrestling, but he elevated it to a level that has not been matched since then. And I think that a lot of us who even watch nowadays are watching still because of the impact that Stone Cold had on us. Yes, he had The Rock with him. Yes, he had that Bret Hart stuff. You mentioned that he may or may not be the best worker in the ring. We got to remember that originally his gimmick was the ring master. So we wouldn't give a name to somebody who could not go in the ring, at least early on. And then, yeah, he had the neck injuries. Doing his sit-down Stone Cold Stunner isn't the best for your back either, but he would do it. And when that glass shatters, there is no louder pop in anything. I don't care if it's basketball hitting a last-second shot. I don't care if it's football. I don't care. When that glass shatters, bro, people go nuts. You were at WrestleMania 41. If he had gotten out onto the ramp a little quicker, I think that pop would have been allowed to flourish. But really, it was kind of like, oh, what's going on, blah, 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 blah. And I think people realized he wasn't going to come out to help Cody in the main event because we got him earlier there. So that kind of tempered it. But when you hear the glass shatter, you go nuts. So Stone Cold Steve Austin at number 2. Now, these next 2 are not on either of your lists. My number 3, and this may be controversial. I don't care. I can separate the artist from the art. I can separate the man from what they're doing potentially outside of the ring. And that's going to be Hulk Hogan. Absolutely. He was the ultimate wrestler. Still to this day, when people think of wrestling and they can't name anybody, they know who Hulk Hogan is. And that helps the business, whether he's saying some things that people don't like or whether he's saying those exact same things and people love him for it. It doesn't matter. Hulk Hogan, the red and yellow, and then his transition to NWO. He was the biggest babyface, and then he was the biggest heel. How many people can ever say that? Cena's trying it right now, but Hogan was just top notch with all that. The air guitar, the feather boas, the Jimi Hendrix guitar riffs, all of his theme songs slapped. He just knew how to work a crowd. People might argue he's overrated. I would say knowing how to work a crowd and knowing how to get them to believe into your move. He did a big boot and a leg drop. It shouldn't have been over, but it was, and you loved it. We could sit here and talk all day about Hulk Hogan's impact on the industry through whatever ever you want to call it, even into a lot of people might not remember this, but WWF ended while Hogan was the champion, which meant he was the first ever WWE champion. So that is a fact. No debating that. The day that WWF got the F out, Hogan was the champion. He had run-ins with all the greats that we've been on our list. You know, I don't know, except for maybe Seth Rollins, but he really did a lot for the business. To say your prayers, eat your vitamins. No matter where he went, he was over with the old people, the young people. It did not matter. And when he was floundering, I said it, he turned heel and was able to make that work. And then people were able to boo him. And then he came to WWEF and he was fighting with The Rock. And they had a double turn live in the ring. It takes a special kind of talent to be able to do that. So Hogan is my number 3. And as you guys have said, number 4 is a toughie, right? There's usually, this is that spot I kind of reserved for somebody fluid. I think that obviously Cena's very safe in my Mount Rushmore. I think Hogan is subject to change. I even think Austin might even be subject to change. But Hogan and Cena, and to a certain degree Stone Cold, all saved wrestling. And this last person is an absolute savior of wrestling. And that is our tribal chief, Roman Reigns. Love him or you hate him, COVID could have killed wrestling. And it should have killed wrestling. One second, C-Rock. It should have killed wrestling, and it didn't. Why? Because Roman Reigns was able to make a heel turn and be champion for 4 years. And he's the master of the false finish. He's the master of, him talking during the COVID era, him talking to his opponents in the ring, you got nothing on me. And things like when he hits the crossroads on Cody Rhodes and he doesn't get the pin, that move sucks anyway. He's just the master of making things work. His spear is better than everybody else's attempted spear. His ooh-ah is captivating. The whole audience wants to do it with him. Whether he was part of the Shield, which is a huge impact, whether he was on his own there was a little bit of floundering there in 2019 with the big dog and eat dog food and all this stuff, but coming back from suffering succotash to where he is now, it takes a special kind of talent to do that. And you could argue we would not have wrestling right now if it was not for Roman Reigns because of the COVID era, and he not single-handedly, but was no pun intended, he spearheaded the whole company's perseverance through that time period. All right. So I'm going to throw it over to you in a moment, C-Rob, but I do want to get to some honorable mentions. I'm not going to put on anybody that has already been mentioned on your list, but I would say The Rock for sure. I mean, we all kind of mentioned him without mentioning him. I would say Shawn Michaels. I would say Ric Flair. I would say Randy Orton, and I would say Chris Jericho. Love him or hate him, he's been wrestling for 30 years and was the first ever undisputed champion. So, C-Rod, it seemed like you wanted to say something to the Roman Reigns thing. He is a controversial figure for sure. It seems like you might have had an issue with that.
No, I was simply acknowledging my tribal chief, but it's a small screen, so I can't go all the way up.
Yes, big facts. That is one of those issues with what we've got going on. But that's the thing, right? Whether you love him or whether you hate him, whether you were booing him, everybody was putting that finger to the sky and acknowledging their tribal chief. And there's just something special about that. He's also somebody like Seth Rollins where he's still actively wrestling. So to already be on a Mount Rushmore and to still have more story and more to give. Yep. And let's not sleep on the fact that dude has leukemia. And he's out here looking great, performing great, doing these things, remission or not. He's a battle he's going to be fighting for the rest of his life. So that is something that you just can't take away from him. And so my list is John Cena, a savior of pro wrestling, Stone Cold, the elevator of pro wrestling to the mainstream, in my opinion, other than Hulk Hogan, who saved wrestling and elevated it, and then Roman Reigns saved pro wrestling. Yeah, okay, you could say AEW was around at that time, whatever, but what they were doing with the Thunderdome and the Performance Center stuff, like Roman Reigns made that work and made it watchable. Obviously, no disrespect to Undertaker, Triple H, Scott Hall, Seth Rollins, and there are other names that we could have. And everybody watching here, please leave your comment below and let us know. We look forward to engaging with you guys in the chat. So we are getting close to the end of our stream here. So to recap, Tomas's list was Cena, Taker, Stone Cold, and Triple H. And C-Rod had Sting, Stone Cold, Seth Rollins, and Scott Hall. Very different lists with some crossover. You can't really argue against any of these names that we've mentioned. In fact, I think we could all, if we were tasked to argue for these people, we could all do a great job arguing for every single name that we have listed. And last but not least, my list was John Cena, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Hollywood Hulk Hogan, or your regular Hulkamania Hulk Hogan, and the Tribal Chief Roman Reigns. All right. So from everybody here at Major Push Wrestling to everybody there watching at home, we appreciate your viewership and we look forward to engaging with you guys in the comments below. And as always, we'll catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.